You're listening to The Martin Houston Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. 100.9 app.
Studios in Los Angeles. Here's Eddie Garcia.
News from the NFL, where Minnesota Vikings first-round pick quarterback J.J. McCarthy suffered a meniscus injury in his right knee that will require surgery. That surgery will determine if he'll miss weeks or months. Either way, if there was a quarterback competition in Minnesota, that's been settled for now. Sam Darnold will now be the starter for the beginning of the season. In baseball games of note, battle of division leaders, Dodgers defeat the Brewers 7-2. LA's now won 9 of the last 10 head-to-head meetings against Milwaukee. Yankees get 3 Juan Soto home runs and a 4-1 win over the White Sox. Orioles lose to the Nationals 9-3, so Baltimore drops a half game back in New York for first in the AL East. Astros won their 7th in a row, beating the Rays 3-2, and they're now a game and a half up on Seattle atop the AL West because the Mariners got crushed by the Tigers 15-1. Guardians, AL Central leaders, edged the Cubs 2-1. The Phillies, leading the NL East, were shut out by the Marlins 5-0. Philadelphia now 7-16 since the All-Star break.
Alabama 1st and 10 on the 12. Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
Martin, I can remember when we came to summer and you were playing fullback up there, and I saw you in the weight room and watched you work out in the weight room. If you could pick up, you were strong enough to pick up the whole weight room. I wanted to pick you, and our running back coach didn't take the pass. Biggest mistake we ever made.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show. We're live, local, and ready to get things rolling right here on your home for Alabama sports. It is the Martin Houston Show powered by Box Eye Care. That's Box Eye Care, Daniel Box, OD, 205-342-0660. Dr. Box and his team are waiting to serve you. You can check them out at boxeyecare.com. We'll share more about them as we move throughout the program. But do not forget that they have that great new in-house lab, and they'll be there to serve you, get you in and out with a new look, fresh look, stylish look with their in-house lab, in most cases within an hour. Also, you're going to get great competitive prices, great services you've come to know and trust. That's Box Eye Care. Check them out at boxeyecare.com. All right, let's keep things rolling this morning. Got a great show lined up for you. And you can join us on the hotline at 205-342-9904. That's the hotline, 205-342-9904. Or you can add your comments, your reactions, your questions, your thoughts, etc., in on the chat. So just type it in. We'll work it into the conversation. We can carry over some of the conversation from yesterday if you would like to do so. We can add that to the conversation as well. So please go ahead and get ready to get in on that conversation. We have also, I saw a graphic on 3 Sports that had projected teams into the playoffs, supposedly based off of AP history. I don't trust the poll. Has the top 12 teams. Don't trust the poll at all. I'm trying to figure out why the poll would have picked what it picked, but like I said, we can talk about all of those things. We'll also conclude today's program with the Christian moment of the week. Remember that this is a day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice, be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. Good morning, X. How you doing, sir?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Good morning, Wyatt. Excuse me. X, have you seen this projected college football playoff using the AP poll history?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'm going to start with just number 12 and work my way into the 4. All right. Matchup between 5 and 12, Oregon and Appalachian State. Appalachian now. I think they just go by Appalachian. So based on historical polls, Appalachian is in at 12. All right. 6 and 11 is Alabama and West Virginia. Okay. 8 and 9, Tennessee and Oklahoma. Number 7, Ole Miss and Iowa. Okay, so you got those. That's 5 through 8. Okay.
Okay.
2 versus 3, Ohio State and Florida State. You ready for number 1 versus 4?
See.
Georgia versus UCF.
Huh.
Now, tell me what poll would have. I think people think that the win records are gonna put people higher than because people can get in with 2 and 3 losses. You see what I'm saying? Like I think people think if somebody goes undefeated that they're going to be in the polls because they go undefeated, and a team with 2 or 3 losses still going to get in because they're going to get in. They're thinking that they may give these other schools, I think, a higher rating or ranking, I guess is the best way to talk about it. I don't. Okay. Did you notice who wasn't in there?
Yep.
Who was that?
Good old Bama.
No, Bama was 6, Xavier.
I missed it. My bad.
Bama versus West Virginia. All right, here's the top. Here's the top 12 teams. Okay, Georgia in descending order: Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, Florida State, Missouri, Utah. Okay, Clemson's 14, LSU's 13. So, of those 12 teams, there's no Texas, no Notre Dame, no Penn State, no Michigan, no Missouri, and no Utah. So based on that, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have the AP poll this year has 6 of the top 12 teams based on history. This guy is projecting Andy Staples. I'm like, where did he come up with something like this? I mean, you literally got – if Appalachian makes it into the playoffs as the number 12 team and UCF is the number 14, I'm just turning in my college football playoff card. I'm sorry. I mean, to me, that just seems like I said, it's just maybe it was a clickbait post. I don't know. But what history is it looking at that is overlooking, the history of some of these other programs that I just mentioned It's overlooking Michigan's history, Penn State's history, Notre Dame's history, in the AP poll, and giving more credence to Appalachian and UCF. That's the two that probably the craziest two of it. UCF being 4 and Appalachian even being in it. I don't see. I guess a better question asks: do you see this new poll make it even harder for some of these other teams to get in now? Unless they're part of a major conference and win it.
I think you'll see potentially an undefeated group of 5 get in.
What and who is that going to be now? Because some of those undefeated group of 5s have been what? I mean, you have to. Yeah, they may get in. You think they're going to get in the top when these other teams now are having to play each other, and you have the super conference of the Big Ten and the super conference of the SEC?
Well,
ain't no way, huh?
Well, the only group of 5 team that was in was App State, because you got UCF's in the Big Ten now.
Right. That's what I'm saying is some of the ones that would have been in are now in conferences. That was the point I was making is like an Appalachian is a group of 5 now. UCF is a Big 12, right?
Power 4. Yeah.
So they're one of the big boys now. So I don't see maybe that's what they're saying is UCF is going to win, I guess that's possible. I guess if UCF gets in, that means that they won. And that becomes a joke because, as Greg Sankey would say, some of these are not like the others. And the Big 12 is definitely not like the other 3. And the ACC and the Big 12 are not like the SEC and the Big 10. So I just thought that was a funny graphic. Tennessee's in, no Missouri, no Michigan, no Penn State, no Notre Dame. How many games would Notre Dame have to lose to not be in the top 12?
Minimum 3.
Yeah, and they might do that. I don't know. I hadn't looked at their record that much. Michigan would have to fall off and lose, which is very possible with their new schedule. Same with Penn State. So I guess there could be some validity to it. I guess they're picking Florida State to win out and Georgia to win out in their respective conferences. But anyway, I don't think they took as much history as they could because Alabama's history in the AP the last 17 years would absolutely probably put them at number 1 because of the pure dominance in the history and recent history. So just a fun fact as we get ready to go to break here, X, they showed a stat. I think Auburn has 30-something first-rounders in their school's history. Nick Saban had 40-something in his tenure. So he had almost 33% more, a third more than Auburn has in their history. So that was just a fun fact to give you on this Wild Card Would You Rather Wednesday. We'll be back on the other side to keep the conversation going. We appreciate you being a part of the Martin Houston Show and joining us each and every morning. And on this beautiful Wednesday morning, we want to remind you of our great supporters and ask you to go out and check out Northwood Timber Company. If you got timberland in West Alabama, Northwood Timber Company has you covered. Since 2011, Courtney White, a registered forester, and his team have been managing timberland and harvesting timberland across 4 West Alabama counties, and that number continues to grow. Whether you need timber management, reforestation services, or an appraisal, you can call Courtney White and his team at 205-242-5127 or email NorthRiverTimberCO. That's NorthRiverTimberCO@gmail.com. And remember this, Courtney White says, timber is like money in the bank. Don't let your investment go unrealized.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Good Wednesday morning to you, otherwise known as Hump Day. Not doing so bad outside right now. As a matter of fact, taking a look outside, we're getting off to a nice and calm start. Construction work will slow you down from time to time on McFarland on the eastern
/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Text DEAL to 511-511 today. All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sky partly to mostly sunny today. The chance of a few widely scattered showers or storms this afternoon or this evening. The high today 93, tonight's low 73. Tomorrow partly sunny. The chance of a shower in scattered spots. The high 94. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports, Xavier Houston.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care, boxeyecare.com. Had some off the script conversation regarding an AP poll that I saw projecting the college football playoffs based on the based on the history of the AP poll. Thought it had several joke points in it, but anyway, the season will play out. Another potential conversation X. We can talk about coaches on hot seats and all that stuff on this Wild Card Wednesday, or we can keep that to a free-for-all Friday. But I was just looking at Florida has 8 teams, 8 games against the AP top 25. Oh man, that's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. But as we keep it rolling this morning, you and I, we've not really dug in. We've had our guests on, but we've not really dug into the scrimmage. So we can do that as well, dig into the scrimmage and find out exactly what our biggest takeaways were. But before we do that, let's get into some conversation with Pat. Pat, you're in on the hotline. And what's on your mind?
Good morning, Martin. I wanted to talk about a young man that died down at New Brockton High School, a 9th grader, at football practice and collapsed on the field and passed away. That the fact that here in the South, some of the states have enacted that they do more toward hydration and replacing electrolytes for these kids, but Alabama's one that hadn't really done as much as far as making it where that they have a trained athletic trainer at each high school, and that it's so sad, and I don't know whether there was one there or was not one there, but that before a school hires an AD, and so many of these little poor school areas, and this is a poor school area in New Brockton, but that they do not hardly have more than 2 assistant coaches if they have that many. And as you well know, having to volunteer at your high school where you volunteered, so many of these places do not have people that can recognize when kids are in trouble. And I just wanted to bring this up in prayers, and when you do your Christian moment of the week, a little prayer for that family. I do not know the kid's name, but a prayer for that family might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I had not heard about it. I'm down off, so I'm off on assignment, so I've not really been as engaged in all of the stories, but I briefly checked it out, and it doesn't say whether or not there was anyone there or not. These are tragic situations. My daughter is a certified athletic trainer working over at Georgia, getting her her master's, and I can tell you it's a lot that goes into all of this, and so sometimes there's just the funding isn't there, and these poor schools and things have to make choices, and unfortunately sometimes those choices end up costing. But we don't know, I don't know the condition of this young man. He could have had some type of medical condition that contributed to this, or it could have been, mismanaged by the coach or somewhere in between. So as you say, the best thing is just to pray for this specific situation and allow it to hopefully inform future situations and bring about, a need and, resources. I'm not trying to be political here, but the stupidity of our nation, we're sitting here struggling in one of the worst financial situations our country's been in a long, long time. But there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars to be raised in days and weeks and stuff like that. Yet we cannot fund our schools to be competitive with educational academics from other countries. Yet we have money to throw away on a stupid election. And I'll jump off my soapbox by saying America needs to prioritize what's important in a lot of ways. So
yes, sir. And one other thing I wanted to bring up: did you see where we have the number 4 backup quarterback in the entire nation? I kind of believe that we got the finest quarterback room in the entire country, from 1 through 4.
I have not. Like I told you, I have not seen a lot. X, you familiar with what Pat's talking about?
No, I haven't. But there's been a lot of talks. I know of Ty being one of the top backups in the country, and the comfort that a lot of people have that this is 100% Jalen's team and Jalen's show. But God forbid if there was an injury to him, that we feel confident enough that Ty can go out and win us ball games.
Interestingly, it's, if you go back to the spring game, I find it interesting. You see them call run plays to Ty. It's almost like they feel confident in Ty's passing ability, but they don't want to have to go completely away from what they do when Jalen's in until they can transition. So it's almost like they get him work at running the ball when he's in. So he's been a plus. He's grown a lot, and I wonder who the 3 guys are in front of him. And to me, I think Ty's biggest thing, guys, is not what he does at practice. The question is, has Ty's confidence grown enough that when the lights come on, he can do it? That's been his Achilles heel, Xavier and Pat, is that he's always looked good in practice and not great in scrimmages. So. Yeah.
Hey, he did have a touchdown to my man Cole Adams in the scrimmage. Now, come on.
No. I'm saying that he's gotten better this scrimmage. He lived up to it. I'm saying that's been his Achilles heel last year and stuff, when people would talk about how good he was, Pat. But it would not translate to live action. It looks like his confidence has grown to the point that it's translating now.
Gotcha. All right. Anyway, Martin, hey, have a blessed day, and let's remember that family down in New Brockton. That's down there near Enterprise. Y'all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Pat. X, anything you want to say about the the kid, and that's so unfortunate. And like I said, we don't know any specifics or details of whether it was, negligence or if it's medically related. So we won't comment on the specifics of it, but you may want to comment on just, in general.
You really hate to hear things like that. I mean, especially this young man, 14, 15 years old, a full life ahead of him, and, doing something that he loved, and unfortunately losing his life doing it. You always hate to hear things like that. So just prayers out to his family and his friends and anyone that came across his path that he impacted.
Yeah, and may he impact them even beyond that. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get a few thoughts. We've asked our guests, but I don't think we've asked each other directly on the first scrimmage and a few of the takeaways, and we want to keep our eyes on before we get to the Christian moment of the week. As we go to break here, I want to remind you, get your officially licensed co-branded Alabama swag, the Legacy Collection, premium jerseys, as well as a hat collection. Go check out the Legacy Collection at athletesthread.com/collections/Martin-Houston. Share this link, this post with your family and friends, and tell them to get their Legacy gear before the season gets started. And if you tuned in on the live stream, just click the QR code and it'll take you right there. We'll be back on the other side with the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Good Wednesday morning to you, otherwise known as Hump Day. Not doing so bad outside right now. As a matter of fact, taking a look outside, we're getting off to a nice and calm start. Construction work will slow you down from time to time on McFarland on the east.
Today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis. And visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show. I want to remind you to go ahead and mark your calendars for a free-for-all Friday. We'll be jumping into that full speed thanks to the pharmacy at Midtown, where they offer long-term care, medication savings. Your health shouldn't break your bank. They also offer compounding along with medication therapy management and so much more. That's the pharmacy at Midtown. Go check them out online at pharmacymidtown.com. or call them if you're a new patient looking for a great pharmacy, 205-579-9933. That's the pharmacy at Midtown who brings us our free-for-all Friday. So go check them out, and they will take care of you. All right. As we were going to break there, I was saying we haven't really dug in. Personally, we kind of interacted with DC and Kennington regarding the scrimmage, but is there anything from your side that has just jumped out at you from this particular scrimmage?
Yeah, I think the depth that we've seen across the wide receiver room, which was something I was excited to see heading into the scrimmage, as well as the defensive line. You just constantly hear, oh, this guy was making plays and that guy was making plays, and oh, we can't forget about him. And it just shows that I think those are going to be probably the deepest two positions for Bama as they get ready to start the season. And I think that's going to be very key to how the success of this team goes.
Yeah, and for me, just looking without sharing specific players' names and different things, I think the versatility on the defensive side of the ball was fun to watch. You cannot just casually watch this defensive team and know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like you could pretty much, you pretty much knew that if there was a sack coming coming off the left side that that it was over the past few years it was Will Anderson or Dallas Turner. With this new defense, I think that there's times where we are a legit 4-4 front, meaning that there's two defensive ends, not an outside linebacker, not a hybrid linebacker, not a Jack or a Jack or a Will, but literally two defensive Michael Strahan type defensive ends on the field and things like that. So this is the combo. Then you have like I said, I was trying to track. I couldn't tell you who was a safety, who was a corner. It was just fun to watch. You had to literally be engaged with this team, and to me, that speaks to Coach DeBoer saying, "Hey, we don't want to have tendencies offensively or defensively, which makes it easy for teams to pick up on from when you're watching film and you don't know which guy's going to come down and pick up that safety. I mean that tight end, or which guy's going to be out on the outside, and just their ability to move and change with the different formations, but yet still be right. Is going to be fun to watch in terms of just the matchups they can create with guys like Devontae Smith. And, we had a listener that had asked about Red Morgan. Red Morgan is still playing ball. Red Morgan is one of those guys that he came in with the hoopla of a 4 or 5 star. I said this a week or so ago. I think we'd be talking more about him in his progress, but because he was not that dude coming out of high school, I think we sometimes don't realize just how good of how good he's really, really doing next.
Yeah. I mean that's what happens when a guy gets kind of overlooked in the process. That's a great thing for the team because, hey, you're not expecting it when you line it up against them because, people pay attention to the star rate. We all know that. Right. And so it kind of lets you get a guy to grow and mature without the expectation.
Yeah, and it looks like Saban's decision to jump up and get some of these Alabama guys is a good thing. Good mix, guys who are hopefully stuck in here for a while to come. Another defensive lineman that had a good scrimmage, just solid, just another depth piece. Was it James Smith is his name? Is that it? What's his name? 23. I'm saying his number.
James Smith.
James Smith had a good camp, but 23. But I've heard a lot about Tutu, and that he was good on the outside and good on the inside. So, and that's LT Overton. So it's going to be fun trying to keep up with these guys. Also, with everybody changing their numbers, I think our defensive line, other than Tim Keenan, are in the 20s or lower. So just trying to keep up with who's who and all of that. But LT Ports just having a solid scrimmage, both in the run game, but especially in the pass game. Flipping over to the offense. Anything else on the defensive side of the ball? I'm going to flip over to the offensive side.
Yeah, I know I heard that Jahad Campbell wasn't a full participant, but what we've seen out of Justin Jefferson is what you want to see out of a guy that gives you that three-man rotation, how we kind of had last year with Jihad, Deontay, and Tresman Marshall.
Yeah, and then you've heard Coach Womack say it, that he feels like they have three starters in Jefferson and Campbell and Lawson. So definitely a case where he got a lot of reps with the ones and twos where he was leading the defense. So that's good as well. But overall, I think the defense did well when they mixed things up. You heard Coach DeBoer say it. It was a couple of drives where they got to the quarterback. I think that was because they mixed things up a little bit. When this defense plays vanilla, I don't think we're going to be very good at this point. That don't mean we won't get better. But I think that if you mix things up and don't just sit back and take it, I think this defense and Coach Womack will get some good pressure. I think that part of the scheme will be to mix things up. I think that they will move guys around. I think they'll send Malachi. Malachi could be the leading sack guy. Or let me say it this way. Our fifth DB could be, as a combination, the leading sack guy. That's just going to be, like I said, it's going to be an adjustment for us because we've gotten pressure as Alabama fans for the last 17 years off the corner, off the edge with an outside linebacker. And this defense may not get it that way. They will get pressure that in some capacities, but to me, when Womack and this defense send blitzes, I think they're sending them because they think they have a sack waiting. That makes sense. It's sort of like when you call a reverse to a guy, you don't call it to get 5 yards. You call it to get a big play. So the guy who runs the reverse most of the time has this crazy average. I think it's the same way with the sacks. Let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball. And in terms of just biggest takeaways, the wide receiver depth, you mentioned that a little bit. And yesterday, of course, Pat said that Cole Adams will be the number 2 receiver with Ryan Williams being the number 1 guy. Both of those guys, I think, are going to be absolutely awesome as contributors this year. But we don't need to underestimate X. When you look at this team, Kendrick Law is a playmaker, touchdown, impact dude waiting to happen. His speed, his explosiveness. I mean, he's one of the fastest guys on the team. And reports say that he is one of the strongest guys pound for pound on the team. So let that sink in a little bit. And now you have a creative coach like Lane Kiffin. What would Lane Kiffin do with Kendrick Law? And then I think
Kendrick Law would be Percy Harvin.
Yeah. I mean, that's I hadn't even thought about him, but yeah, and for the listener who may not know what you fully mean by that, talk about that for a second.
Yeah, Percy Harvin was the gadget playmaker, do it all guy during Florida's heyday up under Urban Meyer, and I think that's the type of player that Kendrick Law could be with the right coordinator, head coach, calling plays and making things happen. He can do everything. Running. We saw it against Auburn, and then we never saw it again. We didn't see it before that.
That's still one of the craziest things. That's still one of the craziest things. This dude actually, we caught one reverse him all year, right? Did we call that before or after that? I don't think we did. So
I don't think so. But this wide receiver room, just like but anyway, Percy Harvin would run the ball, catch the ball, return punts, return kicks. He just did everything, and it got him to be a first-round draft pick. But with this wide receiver room as a whole, it's not as top-heavy as like the rideouts, which, is Judy, Ruggs, Smitty, and Waddle, but I think it's deeper. When you look at that room, you had those 4 guys, and then you didn't know what you had after that. When I look at this room today, I go, man, we don't have a solid 4 first-rounders yet, but we've got 6, 7 guys that I trust to go out there and make plays, and that's not even including a guy like Jalen Hale, who's probably going to miss this year with an injury.
Yeah, the Jalen Hale scenario, Rico Scott is good. I mean, there were several younger guys who flashed in the 3s and 2s, but yeah, this room is deep, really deep, and I don't think we're as far off as we think in terms of the Judy, Ruggs and all that. And we need to remember, we forget that the fourth guy in that rotation was the best guy.
Was Smitty.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, and some people, of course, say, Martin, well, if Judy had been the only receiver or Ruggs had been the only receiver, or Waddle had been the only receiver, then they would have had Smitty-type numbers. I disagree with that. Smitty had multiple games when all of those dudes were there where he had the 200-yard games.
Yep.
He did it. He did it when they were here. He just didn't do it. He just didn't have the opportunity to do it every week. But don't get me wrong, that's splitting hairs when you look at that. But yeah, this offensive team on tomorrow and Friday, let's plan to talk a little bit about identity for this team. Let's talk a little bit about what's your concerns? The offensive line. We still have to talk about the offensive line based on a few notes coming out of this team. Are we set at offensive line? Is it clearly going to be Proctor and Wilkin at the tackles? Is Vandermark, that 6th guy? Is McVay going to be in the rotation? Is Pritchett that guy? There's 6, 7, 8 guys.
A surprise name that I think is going to be that 6th guy.
What's that?
Rock Montgomery.
Well, Rock may be the middle guy, but he won't be the tackle. So he may be in that. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? When I say, and that's the thing, we'll break that down because I've heard good things on him as well. So we'll talk about the offensive line. We'll talk about guys that who you need to keep your eye on. One of the obvious ones is a guy like Ryan Williams, right? Everybody's eyes on him, but who else? Who else do we need to keep our eyes on? Did Young have a good scrimmage? Is Justice Haynes now the number 1 running back? Is it 1A? It's 1A, 1B, but who's 1A and who's 1B? So we'll break all those things down on tomorrow. We'll talk a little recruiting tomorrow, and then we'll kick all those conversations to Free for All Friday. On the other side, we'll add Scotty Hollins, Executive Director, Blueprint Ministries, to the conversation. You've been listening to the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Hey, coming up on the Wednesday edition of The Game, another practice, another coverage. We'll talk to the offensive coaches, players, and a lot more. We'll also feature Alex Scarborough to get reaction from Bama 247. And Dave Mahler helps us understand how to read Kalen DeBoer. Professor Mahler joins us right here. We call him Softy, starting at 2 p.m. on The Game on Tide 100.9, 1230. WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Wednesday morning. It's that time of the year again. The United Way of West Alabama has begun their campaign for 2024-25. They've set a goal of $4,650,000 for this year's campaign. United Way says the needs of their partner organizations have risen as the economy has struggled across the country. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage throughout the day. It's free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, moving with a purpose on the Tuscaloosa freeways and side streets. Now you will have to maneuver around the construction zones, but that's not such a big deal right now. So one in particular is going to be on 2059 eastbound between Western Bypass and Tuscaloosa Coaling. Gets kind of heavy from time to time.
Yumlicious.
Flavoristic.
The sandwich of the summer. The Maple Pepper Bacon Sandwich.
Order the Maple Pepper Bacon Sandwich on the Chick-fil-A app today. Available for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
It's time for the Martin Houston Show. With the same hard-hitting, no-nonsense approach in which he played the game, Martin will take you inside the locker room, down on the field, and across the goal line with his in-depth analysis.
Good morning. Welcome back in to the Martin Houston Show, powered by Boss Side Care, BossSideCare.com. And I want to apologize to my friends over on the X this morning. For some reason, it did not initially connect, but you're in with us this morning, so glad to have you with us. It's now time for us to bring in Scotty Holland, Executive Director of Blueprint Ministries. Good morning, Scotty.
Good morning, Martin. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm talking to you to tell us how we can take our faith to the boardroom, the classroom, or our chosen field of play, sir.
Absolutely. We're going to continue with our series, Friends Who Love Like This. And again, our goal is to become friends who love like this. And I know you're probably thinking, well, Scotty, friends who love like what? And our example has been John 15:13, where Jesus says, greater love has no one than this, that you lay down your life for your friend. And obviously, Jesus, in this example, he chooses to lay down his life for us. And what we looked at is, he said, this is the greatest expression of love. You can't find a better love than this. And so what he says is, what he shows us is that he did what was best for us, no matter what it cost him. And so we're talking about friends who love like that, by Jesus dying on the cross for our sins. Romans 5:8 says, for God demonstrates his love for us in this, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. While we were at our worst, he gave us his best. We're talking about friends who love like that. So we're looking at the example of the man who was actually taken to Jesus and lowered through the roof. So one, he couldn't get to Jesus. Two, he couldn't walk his way to Jesus. And once they actually got to Jesus, it was standing room only. They couldn't get into the building, so they find a way. And so we wanted to just take one more look at maybe another, but at least one more look at that story, because we talked about the group of men who actually took him to Jesus. We wanted to look at some of those sacrifices. One, this guy had to be heavy, so they carried him all the way to Jesus. That's a sacrifice. But two, it's a sacrifice of time. We don't know what else they needed to be doing, but they took the time out. Why? Because their friend who was in need, who, essentially couldn't help himself, they took the time out to get him to Jesus. Because guess what? That was the best place for him to go. So they even figured out, how do we help our brother? We've tried probably these other things. Nothing has worked. Here's the best place to go. And so the thing I want to leave us with and I want us to consider is, how do we help those around us? How do we love those around us? And what are we willing to do? Now, here's the backside of that. I'm going to call it an unintended blessing, Martin. The people, those four guys who brought that man to Jesus, they got a chance to see Jesus in a way that they'd never seen him before. They knew that Jesus could heal people. They knew that Jesus could do a lot of things. But when Jesus, it says, verse 5, Mark 2, verse 5, it says, when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, sons, your sins are forgiven. I know they had to be blown away. Like, hold up, like,